All right. Well, hey, hello everybody. This is Dan King from Fist Bump Media, and I just want to welcome you to the next step in our webinar series. This one is part of our series, really kind of focused primarily on our client services, but there's a lot of information in here too that will apply to anybody, whether you're a client with us or not. But really, the goal of this one is we take a look at 5 types of WordPress plugins that'll make your site run strong. Really, one of my big primary goals here is that as we do the hosting that we do, and we really specialize in WordPress website hosting. We optimize our servers quite a bit for WordPress, and it's just WordPress is our jam, right? So we work in it all the time, all day, every day, and help hundreds of people with their websites with it and stuff. So it's the space we're really most comfortable with, and where we know we've got some background, right? But our hosting that we do for WordPress is a managed WordPress hosting. So what that means is that if you go to a GoDaddy or a Bluehost or anything like that, and you get them to host your website, and you get their kind of economy WordPress hosting or whatever and stuff, then really it's kind of a hey, here's your space on the server. Click this button to install your WordPress. Here's the keys. Congratulations, you're a webmaster now, right? And one of the things we know about WordPress is because it's an open source platform and uses a lot of different tools and plugins and things like that to really help you enhance the experience that you want to try to provide to your visitors on the web. There's all that stuff. That's software, right? The software itself needs to be updated and managed, and things you need to do to make it continue to work well, right? So what we do in our managed WordPress hosting is not only do we give you that space on the server too, but we say, all that software updates, all those plugin updates, and WordPress core and your themes and things like that too, we're going to manage all of those updates for you. We're going to take a look at things like security and stuff like that on your website too. So the things that we're talking about today are some of the things that we've really dug into and been experiencing over several years, many years of running this managed WordPress hosting, where we're really trying to take care of the maintenance of people's websites. So I've seen a lot of stuff that works well, some works okay, some stinks really bad and breaks things. So I've seen almost all of it, right? I can't say it all because, literally there are countless options out there for a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today. But today I want to kind of focus on a few of them, right? And one of the things I'll explain to you right out of the gate is that even with our managed hosting, we have a couple of different levels. Our what we call our basic hosting plan, which is where most of our clients are. A lot of the tools that we're going to take a look at are plugins. A lot of them are free plugins. Some are very popular plugins. You may already have some of these running on your website and stuff too, but we're just going to take a look and we'll kind of give a little overview of a lot of this stuff. But then some of these are premium plugins, right? And with some premium plugins, we even have different hosting plans called like our Basic Plus, where you're going to see some of these premium plugins I'm going to show you a little bit too are actually included in the Basic Plus hosting. So it costs you a little bit more, a couple dollars more per month of stuff for the hosting, but to go out and get these plugins yourself, you could be spending $50 a month or more, depending on the kind of stuff that you want to get. And we're able to include that stuff to you, and you really just increase the cost a little bit too with some performance reports, things like that stuff too. So some really nice upgrades. But really, ultimately, I'm going to show you a few different things. I want to show you some of the free stuff that's out there that if you're on like a basic hosting or you're managing yourself on another hosting platform somewhere, these are tools that you can use that'll really help your site run strong and perform well, right? And when I say perform well, it's not just a speed thing, but it's a search engine thing. a lot of different factors that I want to kind of take a look at this and just, these are the things I see that help sites be successful, right? So the first one I want to take a look at here is some SEO plugins, right? The search engine optimization plugins. And really, there's only two in this bucket that I want to kind of take a look at real quick. Really, the standard out there that really most bloggers and website owners and businesses and stuff that I see using is the Yoast plugin, right? They really kind of became the standard very early on and set the tone. So just because they're popular, and they're a really great resource too for information if you want to learn about how to optimize your WordPress website for SEO and stuff like that too. Even their website has got a ton of great information, and I believe they might even have some courses, ebooks, things like that stuff too that you can take to really dig in deeper. But the plugin itself does not necessarily just make your SEO happen, right? Basically, it's a tool, and the biggest thing that you see with a Yoast plugin is what it does, like with your blog post, right? So you create a page or a blog post, you're going to have a set of widget here, and I'm going to show you some things here in just a second. You'll have the on-page stuff where you can set certain descriptions and things like that and it'll evaluate the content on your page to tell you how well it's set up for SEO. So it doesn't make your SEO, it doesn't make you, rank number 1, 2, but it looks at all of the factors that it knows that search engines are looking for to tell you, how well you're doing as it relates to that. So it's a really powerful tool because, you can just create content and throw it out there and just wonder, or, you can have a little bit more confidence that, you're building your content, your pages and your blog posts and stuff like that too in a way that, is really set up for success to help you accomplish being found on the search engines. In the premium side, this is one of the plugins, and it's called Smart Crawl Pro, and it's by an organization called WPMU Dev, right? So if you go WPMUdev, DEV.org, you'll see their services stuff too. But it's a membership site. They have several plugins and things like that you can use. But this is one of the things too, where because of the membership that I have with them through Fist Bump Media, we can provide some of this stuff too. And this is one of the plugins that we actually provide in our Basic Plus. So this is included, and I'm going to show you this too because I want to show you a couple of things here related to this. And WPMU Dev. You see, when you're on Basic Plus, you'll get access to a bunch of the different extra plugins that are in there. And I want to take a look at Smart Crawl, right? Because this is what a good SEO plugin will do for you, right? This one even sets up, you can set up a SEO checkup where it's going to kind of scan over your site for you on a regular basis and kind of give you a score and tell you how things are doing. It'll analyze your content. I'll flip over to that in a second too. A lot of the SEO plugins these days, have a built-in sitemap. And you can kind of configure and customize that stuff too, so that you can say, hey, certain types of pages shouldn't be considered in my sitemap, which is how the search engines read your website and index everything. Or maybe there's certain pages that take a higher priority, right? There are social cards and things that you can set up. Certain types of open graph for Facebook, Twitter cards, Pinterest verification, stuff like that, so that for example, when I share content to Facebook, maybe it's going to use a special image or a special description or title, for the page or the post or whatever, right? So you could set that stuff up too with a good SEO plugin tool stuff, right? Those are a few general settings here and stuff too, but I want to take a look at the big thing. This is a thing that I talked about with Yoast, does this as well too, and Smart Crawl has got a very similar kind of platform here. But the big thing here that I want to point out is this snippet, right? Because this little here, it's called Google Preview, and Yoast, I believe it's just called a snippet. It's going to show you what the search result looks like if this blog post in this case were to show up on a search result. This is what that result would look like on Google, right? The typical, the title and the big text with a link and a little description underneath. This stuff is really important, and this is what you want your SEO plugin to be doing. I can edit that. It's called the metadata here. I can give it a specific title. Maybe I'm leaving my site name off of it, or just focusing on the title, or I can give it a different title that's going to show up on search engines than what the blog post title itself is, right? Give it a description, right? And when you're thinking about a description, don't just let it default to the first couple sentences of text from the blog post, right? This is your opportunity to change that text right there. That is going to kind of be, that's your pitch for people who find it on search, to say, hey, this is why this is important to you. If you're finding this on the search engines, that you'll want to click over because this is what you're going to find. So it's kind of your sales pitch, right? To describe the content on the page a little bit better, to try to convince somebody to kind of click over and read. You can usually add, keywords for search and stuff. Good plugins will give you opportunity to add keywords and news keywords, and that gets deeper into some technical SEO stuff too. But when you plug in, a focus keyword, what the post is really primarily about, the plugin will actually then kind of score your content to let you know how well it's doing. In this case, it's giving me a lot of suggestions. Yoast does this exact same thing too. It's going to give you a lot of suggestions for how you can improve. Like the first paragraph doesn't have the keyword at all. There's no internal or external links, things like that. So if I add some links, that'll help the SEO value and stuff too. The good plugins these days, Yoast does this as well too, has a readability score, right? So obviously making it easier to read is going to help the user experience, which is one of the things then, if it's going to be a good user experience, is one of the things Google's looking for to help rank you better. So you want to kind of check your readability too. It's not always important to try to get it to a perfect score, but definitely having good readability scores is a benefit to what you're doing. You'll see here too, this one's got the social tab here, so I can say enable this for the post, and if I want to change the title that's going to appear when we share it over to Facebook, or the description, or give it a different featured image. A lot of times, if you're just sharing and not changing this at all, the featured image that you set is for the post is the image that will show up with the link when you share it, like on Facebook. So if you want that to be one thing for purposes on the post or whatever, but maybe be a different image, you can change that kind of information and data and stuff too. Same thing for the Twitter card stuff, which is a little description thing that shows up in Twitter for that too. So anyway, good SEO plugin is going to do all that stuff for you. I know Smart Crawl does some cool things too with some advanced settings, which I really like, and this is one of the reasons I kind of prop this one up a little bit too, especially in our our basic plus hosting plan, which is built more for performance and stuff too. It even does some automatic linking and stuff too. So you can set certain advanced settings that will tell you, hey, add 2 links to a post. So it'll find a word on a blog post that is relevant to another page on my website or another blog post on my website, and will automatically add a link to it for me, which is great stuff for SEO and everything. So there's some cool advantages to that as well too. So, but in a nutshell, that's what you're looking for in a good SEO plugin. Yoast is really the standard, especially when it comes to a free plugin. And then, in our Basic Plus, we really like the Smart Crawl one as well too. It's the same one that I use on the Fistbump Media website itself. So pretty cool. The next type of plugin here that I want to take a look at after the SEO plugins is the caching plugins, right? Caching plugins, just to kind of explain to you basically what this does is when somebody visits your website, right, the web page that you have there, whether it's a blog post or your home page or whatever, right, it's going to have text on it, it's going to have images on it, it could have videos on it, all kinds of different elements, right? It could be some things that are just kind of written up from a lot of different code, right? But all of these elements, and you think about images and videos and things like that too, that could be bigger file sizes. Those are things that when I visit a web page for the first time, it's going to have to try to download that stuff down to my computer. Okay, so a good caching plugin, essentially what it does is it leverages certain technology, sometimes technology even within the user's web browser, right? Say if I'm loading this page for the first time and there's this image there and it's, say, your logo for the website, it's going to download, it's going to store in my browser cache, right? So that next time I visit that page, it doesn't have to download that file for me again. It just pulls it from my own computer because it's already stored there in my browser's cache, right? So at a basic level, that's essentially what a caching plugin does, is they help leverage that kind of technology to really push some of that content closer to the end user. There's a few really good free ones and stuff out there too. This is not an exhaustive list too, but these are a couple that I know I've seen people have some good success with, and that have not caused tons of like big conflicts or problems with people's websites. But WP Super Cache and W3 Total Cache are a couple of the very popular ones that are out there, and they do a great job, right? One of the things you'll see in the caching plugins too is levels of options, right? So a couple premium plugins that I also really like, and one of these is from WPMU Dev again, and it's also included in my Basic Plus hosting plan, is the Hummingbird Pro, right? And I'll show you some settings on that one here in a second too, to give you an idea of a little bit of what it does. And then we have some more advanced business hosting packages and stuff. Our Business Plus plan and stuff too, where we use like a WP Rocket, and that's something. Both these are premium plugins again, but they're included in certain levels of plans that we have. Both are really good. Both have some really great options and stuff too. Let's take a real quick look at some of the things that Hummingbird does. Hummingbird will kind of run through your site and it'll scan it and do a performance test essentially, right? So it'll say, hey, how long does it take to load, the first image, any of the text content on the site, things like that, and it'll score your site, right? So that'll give you an idea. But when it does that, if you see things with a low score, say your images are not optimized, you need to work on that. You're not using what's called like gzip compression or something like that, right? So these are different kind of technical pieces in the background stuff that where I can activate certain functions to help kind of improve the performance. A lot of these things, when you look at things like gzip compression and some of the asset optimization stuff, I'll touch on those a little bit more detail in a second too. Some caching plugins will actually get in deep into some of these things and allow what's called like compression and deferring of things like the JavaScript code and CSS code. CSS code is like the style code that's on your website. It's the stuff that says, and we'll make the header on my website this pretty blue and the rest of the page is white or whatever, right? So all those pieces of code, the more code that you have on there, it builds up, and it takes longer for your browser to read it. So it takes longer for it to really load your website. So some of those things may not be quite as important. So we can kind of minimize that stuff and push it down, right? But a good caching plugin, and Hummingbird does this really well too. It runs that performance score. It tells you where the opportunities are, things that you can do to improve, turn on different types of caching. You see here, we've got page caching, browser caching, gravatar caching, all kinds of stuff too. This one even does some uptime monitoring and watches to make sure your website is up to date stuff too. We're going to talk about this one here in a little bit as well too towards the end, but this is a piece that's included in this plugin specifically. Working on database cleanup and stuff. These are all factors that can impact the page speed of your website. So a good caching plugin is really going to drill in on page load speed performance, and it's going to leverage some of that technology. Some of the good ones, even I know Hummingbird here uses WPMU Devs, what's called a CDN, a content delivery network. Other ones maybe allow you to connect with the CDN. And that does even some more of it. It'll take images and things like that from your website, and it'll push them out onto servers and store them there that are closer to other people, so they're not having to download information quite as far. So there's some cool integrations like that and stuff too in some of these plugins. Typically, you'll see a lot of those more in the premium plugins. So, all right. So after SEO plugins, caching plugins, the next one I want to take a look at is image optimization plugins. Okay. And there's a few of these as well too. Again, these are not necessarily an exhaustive list, but there's a great free one out there. EWWW Image Optimizer is a great free one. And what these do is, I see a lot of people when they're creating a blog post, for example, especially people who use a lot of their own photography and stuff, will take a beautiful picture, with their awesome camera and stuff, and then in file size terms, it is a file that maybe 5 megabytes in size, right? When really, I like to see images on a page definitely less than like 500, which is like half a megabyte, right, in size. So, sometimes I see people uploading 5 megabyte image files and putting them on a web page, and that's more than 10 times what I really like to see in file size. And now you're asking people to download that image to their computer when they come visit you and stuff, right? And that slows the site down. So image optimization is a really important thing too, because when we upload that 5 megabyte file, it doesn't necessarily need that. There's even data in the background of the photo and stuff like that too that's not necessarily needed for web delivery like this. You can scale the quality without really visually changing the appearance of the image and stuff too. So these image optimization plugins, what they'll do is they'll do that optimizing and make the 5 megabyte file and say, we can get this to maybe 250K, like a quarter of a megabyte, right? Or whatever size, but it'll do that optimization for you, and it works it in a way too, so that you don't lose the quality, the visual quality of the image for viewing on the web, but it does bring the file size in closer to what you need it for. Faster delivery over the web, and fast is always one of the most important things too. So the EWWW Image Optimizer is a great free one, great premium one that I have. I think there's a free version of Smush out there as well too, but there's a premium, the Smush Pro version as well too, which is part of the part of the WPMU Dev toolkit, and is also something that's included with what we offer in the Basic Plus hosting. And to take a look at that one real quick, you'll see in this one, it's when I install the plugin first, if I've already got the website set up and running and stuff, I can go back through and do like a bulk smush. So it's going to scan all of the images that I already have on my website, and then run optimization all of those. There's a lot of different settings here too for which images you want to be able to optimize and how you want to compress them. Super Smush, this is like some of the pro features and stuff. Smush, this is the difference between Smush and Smush Pro. Stripping out some of that metadata, the kind of extra description information in the background that I talked about. Even changing file types and stuff too, from like a PNG, which can be typically a bigger file, to a JPEG, which it might be a little bit leaner and smaller from a web delivery perspective and stuff too. So good image optimization plugins will do that stuff for you. And then typically when you have it set up, what it'll do is you can go back and scan all of the images you already have. But when you upload new images to your website, it will automatically then go ahead and do that optimization for you, as part of the image upload process, and go ahead and save you right on the front end. So any new content you develop will be already optimized. So good stuff. A few of the good ones here too. You see the CDN, that content delivery network piece, right? This one obviously uses that WPMU Dev content delivery network that I like to try to connect with too, with our Basic Plus that are using these premium tools. Lazy load is an interesting thing too, because what that does is it basically tells your browser how to load the image. So maybe when you load a page, right, and you get this first section that you see, which is above the fold, right, when there might be images further down the page that you don't see yet. So lazy load does things like it'll actually kind of hold off on loading those for a minute, until you start to scroll down. Then it'll go ahead and kind of load that up. So it helps kind of improve page speed load time. And another thing I want to point out too, because at the time of this recording right now, there's Google has actually just recently released a new plugin. So Google themselves is getting into plugin development here for WordPress and saying, hey, here's one that we think is really important, and they call it native lazy load. And what I did is I actually ran some speed tests. So I have a website where I actually already had some lazy load active using the WP Rocket. It's one of the premium caching plugins, right? So it already had that kind of active on the website, but I went ahead and installed the native lazy load plugin on the same website, and then I ran a couple speed tests. Right, so this is the first speed test, and with this website, it was getting a B for a page speed score and 83%. Not horrible, but it's green there, right? But a little bit of room for improvement. Full page load time is 3.1 seconds. Really, from a website perspective, it's kind of a long time, but again, it's not a horrible time. I see websites all the time taking 10, 15 seconds to page load stuff. So this is good. So not horrible. Actually, what you'll notice too, though, is it did get a fail grade for serving scaled images, right? So one of the areas that I have for improvement on this to bring that score up is working with the images. So I added the plugin, ran the report again right after that, and you can see that the page speed score went from 83 to 95%, right? So I got an A, and it shaved from 3.1 seconds down to 2.6, and now I don't have that image failing error there and stuff too, right? A couple of other factors there changed a little bit too, but you see that page speed score jumped up significantly to a 95 and dropped half a second off of my page load time, which is fantastic. Actually, half a second, statistically speaking, makes a big difference whether people bounce and visit when they visit your website or not. So that's, I'm really happy with that. But that's another image optimization kind of tool. Is that Google's new plugin, the native lazy load. And you can try that out and see if that makes an impact on your website as well too. And that's a free plugin as well too. So I think I'm probably going to start testing that with more websites, and probably even starting to leverage it on several websites now too. So cool. So that's image optimization. The next big thing for the different types of plugins that I like to use to keep a website running strong are the security plugins. Security is huge, right? This is a big deal, and this is where I see a lot of people with their websites when they're not using a managed WordPress hosting like our basic hosting or our basic plus hosting or something like that, right? They run into issues with sites getting hacked, infected with malware and stuff like that, right? One of the factors for that is just keeping the updates done on it on a regular basis, right? With our managed hosting plans, we run the updates 3, 4, 5 times a week, right? So we're constantly working on keeping all that software, the plugins, the themes, the WordPress, everything to all up to date, which a lot of those fixes are security fixes. They're patches to improve the security and maybe close up a hole that might have been there before or something like that, right? So that's a big factor there too. But we also like to have software on the website or plugins on the website to help monitor security, right? To make sure that when files are on the website, that we're scanning those files to make sure the files are not malicious, right? So a couple of great plugins that do this really well. WordFence is a really great one. It's I think one of the bigger standards out there, but does a fantastic job. And we'll scan the website for malicious files, give you a report and stuff too. It even tells you things like, oh, you have a plugin that's out of date, But we manage those pretty closely and stuff too. So it's not unusual to see that, But yeah, it looks for files, and it can even work through helping you fix. There are premium packages to it, but the free version of WordFence, the security plugin, is really a fantastic tool. iTheme Security also is another one that's free. They do have premium versions, add-ons and stuff for it as well too, but it definitely can run great scans on your site. Help you find and fix and correct different issues that might exist there. So both really great free plugins. In the premium side, again, part of that WPMU Dev package that we include in our basic plus hosting, Defender Pro. Defender Pro is a cool plugin. It does the scans. It checks for all kinds of things. There might even be just tweaks, within the website, right? Hackers, look for common things where, they might be able to access a certain type of file somewhere that could, if they're tricky, get a certain kind of way backdoor into your site stuff too, and moving that file to a different location kind of throws them off, because then, well, that file doesn't exist there. So now they can't go find and hack it, So there are things like little security tweaks that a good security plugin can help you do. The file scanning, right? The file scanning is a big deal, right? To make sure that there are no malicious files on the website. Good security plugins will do this as well too. They'll blacklist things, right? If things are on a blacklist, it'll scan and say, this is bad traffic. It's not allowed to visit your website. IP lockouts, right? So this is a big deal because, and this happens actually pretty regularly, a lot more than you think. You probably it could be happening to your site today. For example, not necessarily, but it could be. I see it happening that frequently that bots and people set up bots and tools and stuff to just scan websites and find the login page for your website. They find the login page for your website, and it's not even a person trying to hack. It's just kind of like a bot, a little program or something like that. They find a login page, and they maybe, type in something like admin for the username, and then try to start common password combinations and stuff, right? So they'll just kind of maliciously try to log into your website. So it's one of the reasons why, having things like a very secure password, not using a username like admin, right? Things like that are actually really important to securing your website, right? So one of the things a good security software plugin will do in your website is, when those kind of attacks start coming and malicious attempts to try to log into your website come, it'll pick it up and say, this login tried to, or this location, this IP address tried to log into your website 5 times incorrectly, so let's lock it out, right? So good security plugins will do the same thing too. And on that note of secure passwords, it's a small, simple site that we run, but a random password generator online can actually help you create a secure password stuff too. So you set the parameters and say, I want it to be 13 characters, use upper lowercase digits, special characters, and create a password. So and you can kind of copy paste that and go log that in and stuff somewhere. So always really important to be secure. While we're talking about security too, it's important to mention SSL certificates, right? SSL certificates are more about encrypting the information that passes back and forth. So somebody fills out a contact form on your website. If your website is not using an SSL certificate, then that information is not necessarily encrypted when they fill out and then plug in, here's my name and my email address and my comment to you and stuff. That information is not encrypted, could be intercepted, right? And grab that person's name and email address and add it to a spam list or whatever, right? An SSL certificate encrypts that information when it passes back and forth. So this is really important if you're running like e-commerce and using a store online, but even just for people commenting on blogs and using comment forms and things like that too. Anytime a user is interacting with your website, an SSL certificate gets to be really important. They're so important these days that you start to get not secure warnings up in your browser if a website is not using one. It doesn't mean your website is not secure and it's easily hacked or it's infected or anything like that, but it's just saying basically it's that signal that this is not encrypted information that you're passing back and forth when you're working with it. But if you get an SSL certificate, we do have those available for sale for plans, but the basic plus plan that gets those premium plugins too, stuff for performance, also gets the SSL certificate included with it. So there's no additional cost for the SSL certificate if you're doing that. If you have a website already and you add a SSL certificate, really simple SSL is a fantastic plugin that essentially, if your certificate is active, you install this plugin, and what it'll do is actually run through and update the code, stuff like that too. So all the links, anybody trying to hit HTTP yourwebsite.com, automatically gets redirected to HTTPS website yourwebsite.com, right? So it does a lot of those things, and actually it's probably the simplest tool that I've seen for upgrading a non-SSL website to an SSL website. If you started with SSL and everything too with a brand new website, it's not something you need, but if you're making that upgrade, definitely a fantastic plugin. So awesome. All right, so now we've talked about SEO plugins, caching plugins, image optimization plugins, security plugins. You see all of those have some WPMU dev tools and stuff that we like to use to really amp up performance and stuff like that for our website. I think you probably see, looking at what those tools can do, it can really be a significant performance increase for your website too. But there's one other piece here I want to kind of take a look at, and it's kind of code and database optimization plugins, right? We talked about in some caching plugins, they will do some of this, minify and optimize, and defer, your CSS, your JavaScript code and things like that. But if you're not running those types of caching plugins, they don't do that. Having something help optimize your code and stuff like that too is a big deal. So for example, one of the plugins that I know is pretty popular out there too is Auto Optimize. It's a free plugin, and it essentially works with tools like WP Super Cache and stuff like that too. So it does some of that deferring the CSS and minifying and things like that too. So it does some of that optimization for you. Another plugin that I like a lot is WP Optimize, and WP Optimize is a little bit different. One of the technically it's kind of a caching plugin and stuff too, but one of the big things that WP Optimize does is it does some of this database optimization, right? So you can see it, give you the option to compress your images, cache stuff and everything too, but allows you to clean and optimize your database. I know some of the premium plugins for caching I see does that too, things like WP Rocket has that built in. And so on, but this is also something too that even in our basic hosting plan, our regular managed plan, we run regular database optimization all the time. Essentially, what happens is when you're working on a blog post, if I make a change change to a blog post and then I save that, right? I'm going to update that. What that does is it actually creates another entry in the database for this. So you see this where it says 2 revisions now, okay? That 2 revisions there is essentially the 2 different versions, right? So if I'm working on a blog post and I save it after every sentence that I write, I could have 50 versions of that blog post, one with each new additional sentence stored in my database on the website, right? When really it's good to have a few as a backup, but a lot of those then start to bloat your database, right? So if you have 50 versions of this one blog post, right, with all the different revisions in your history and stuff, all that history and stuff too is just filling up space and making it harder for your database to work and grab the information it needs to grab when people come visit and are pulling information from that database, right? So we do a lot of database optimization stuff that helps kind of clean up some of the 45 old revisions, maybe keep the last 5 for you in case mess something up and I need to go back a little bit. But the old ones that was just the first sentence that you typed, it doesn't need to be necessarily maintained in the database and stuff too. So these are things from an optimization perspective. We do that just inherently within our basic and the basic plus hosting plans and stuff too. But if you don't have that, tools like WP Optimize, some of the premium caching plugins like WP Rocket and stuff like that too, do some of that cleanup and optimization of your database. So those are really, really great tools for that. When it comes to optimizing that code and everything as well too, sometimes there are themes. So for example, if you're on even our basic or basic plus, we include the elegant themes and stuff too. We do a lot of websites with the Divi theme. And one of the settings in the Divi theme here is to minify and combine JavaScript files and minify and combine CSS files. So the theme itself has some of that stuff built in, but then again, if you're not using a theme or one of the like the premium plugins and stuff that does that kind of code optimization, definitely can't go wrong with an auto optimize and WP optimize for database cleanup stuff and everything. So it's really, really fantastic tools for that kind of stuff. So with that, that's really kind of running through the 5 different types of WordPress plugins that really help make your site run strong. I hope this was helpful and beneficial for you and stuff too, to help you kind of understand some of the things that kind of trigger your website performance. And it's really a whole big picture, right? One of the other things I think is really important to mention here too when it comes to plugins is it's really important that you don't do too many plugins on your website. Really what I like to see with the website is 10 or less. So if we're looking at 10 or less and we're talking about using 5 of them for performance type stuff like this, it doesn't leave a lot of room for other things. But that's not a hard rule. I see several websites running 15 or 20, some even 25 plugins and stuff. But really important from a plugin perspective to make sure that you're not hurting yourself and adding more code to the website that decreases the experience and stuff too. So, but even the more you do, the more important some of the performance stuff becomes to make sure that CSS and JavaScript, all that's optimized and deferred as it needs to, and caching and all the stuff, right? So these are all really important aspects and stuff too, especially if you're adding in more and more functionality. But if you're running lean, 10 or few plugins, and you're using the types of plugins that we're talking about here and stuff too, you'll have a site that's running really strong, secure, very smooth and stuff too. And that's our goal with the basic hosting and especially the basic plus hosting, that it adds in really just kind of knocking up the level of performance for you a great deal, and saves you a ton of money in doing it because you're not having to pay for all that extra stuff yourself. It's just kind of included in your hosting plan. So with that, if you guys need anything, have any questions about any of this, hit us up. Just hit us up on Twitter @FistBumpMedia. We're on Facebook, through the website, but we're always here. You can do this on chat on the website and stuff like that too. So, but we're always here and always happy to help. So you guys have a big fist bump for you there. Boom. Have a great day. Thanks for joining.